pinning the top of my bag all the way around, and I pinned that 4-inch hole closed. It's right over here. I want to make sure that's pretty neat pinning right there. I'm ready to top stitch my bag, and when I top stitch, I'm going to be sewing at 1/8 inch seam allowance. So make sure as you do that 1/8 inch seam allowance that you're being very accurate, because 1/8 inch seam allowance can get off very, very easily. So I'm going to pull my threads back behind because it's going to be a visible seam. I want to be just really careful about everything I do. Top stitching is visible. It's on the top. That's why it's called top stitching. And I'm going to start in this seam because that way you won't really see my back stitching. It'll be a little bit more hidden. Again, this is 1/8 inch seam allowance. So 1/8 inch seam allowance means that that inside toe is lined up with my fabric just like it is right now. You see that inside toe lining up. I'm going to go forward 3 stitches, and then I'm going to back stitch, and then I'll just continue all the way around. And this time I really am going all the way around. I'm not leaving any holes. I'm sewing the whole bag at 1/8 inch seam allowance, just at the very, very top here. When I get to my button tab, I'm just going to leave that button tab sticking straight out. My hole is right after that button tab, so I'm just going to be paying really close attention when I sew this hole that all those layers stay together and are lined up. If they're not lined up right, it's very, very easy to get off on 1/8 inch seam allowance. So you can go back and kind of repin them. So I have this piece sticking out here, so I might just tuck it under a little bit more, but I still want it right on the edge. Like I want them lined up right together. I'm going to put an extra pin in here and just keep sewing at my 1/8 inch seam allowance. Again, if they are not lined up close together, there's still going to be a hole here because you only have 1/8 inch to catch everything. So I've made it about halfway around, and I've just finished closing up my hole. As I get close to where I started, I'm going to trim my threads so they don't get tangled. Again, this is going to be a very visible seam. Anytime you top stitch, it's very visible. So I'm just going to make sure that I keep everything as nice and neat as possible. And once I'm right on top of that same seam I already sewed, I'm going to back stitch. And then I'll lift up my presser foot, my needle, and I'm going to trim those threads off. And you can see my bag is sewn together. My hole is closed and there's no holes. Double check for any holes. If there's holes, then you're going to unpick a little section and just resew that one section. Then you're good to move on. You're almost done.